How much money can I expect to get if I sell my film with Netflix?
I mean, great question. I think it's very individual based on, your film, what the buyer wants to pay. So everybody wants a range. And by the way, most indie producers usually lie about this in cocktail parties. Numbers get thrown around. It's often not the case. But the truth is this, okay? First of all, I don't feel comfortable necessarily talking about that in the interview. But secondly, in my Netflix contracts, it says that I'm not supposed to talk about it because they don't want other indie producers saying, hey, you gave him that much. They don't want to have to compete back and forth or whatever. So I'm going to be respectful of that. It's an actual clause in the contract.
Okay, that's fair. Absolutely. Isn't it damaging for a filmmaker to think of their movie as a product?
I guess as an artist, you might think that that's a little insulting or belittling maybe as an artist, but depends what you consider a product to be. I mean, if we look up the definition of a product, it's, something that gets consumed, I think, or something like that. I don't know if I haven't looked it up, but I assume it would be like something like that. So you want your movie to be watched, that's consumption by viewers. So in that case, it is a product. I mean, it's an entertainment product, but that's semantics. So we don't have to call it a product. We can call it a movie.
When do you think we started thinking about movies as products, or has it always been that way going back to Kubrick and even farther back?
Remember, I didn't go to film school. So in a commerce program and a law program, everything's a product or a service. I mean, that's the terminology you're using, right? So that's just the terminology that I'm used to using. But I'm sure they don't use that terminology in film school. They call it, film or movies or something like that. I don't think they call them products. So it's just, it is semantics. It's the same item. It's just what you're calling it. I don't mean to belittle a film by calling it a product. Like, it seems to me like you're almost suggesting that I am belittling it by using the term product. There's lots of things. Everything's a product or a service. So I'm not degrading the film by calling it a product.
Okay, so I guess because for me, I think of a product as a widget. And I think of it as serving some type of a function in the home or in the car, or whatever. But then a film or a book or music, to me, I guess it is a product. I don't see it in that way. And I'm just wondering if other people will either agree or disagree. And
okay, so in classic business school, there's products and services. So a product would be a widget, like you described. And a service would be, like legal services or, okay. What would a film be? Does it fall into either category, or it's got its own category?
I guess it would fall into a category, but for me, I guess it's just something that I take in and I'm not really expecting a certain result from, but maybe that's too ethereal, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps there is another category. I mean, perhaps I missed that in one of my marketing classes or something like that. Maybe there's a third category that it, is a consumable or something. I don't know, something like that. But I really don't feel that it's a derogatory term to call a film a product. And by the way, when they were being sold in DVDs, like when you bought a DVD, is that also not a product? Or
no, you're correct.
Like, what about a hardcover book? I mean, now everything's digital, right? So you're not receiving anything, but
right.
But
You're
would
right.
a book is something you touch and you put on a shelf? And
very good point. Yeah, I guess it's just training my mind to think that way. And maybe that's the difference between an artist that's successful and one that's not, is just knowing that even though this is your sort of blood, sweat, and tears, and you may or may not be writing for a so-called market, that it is a product. And maybe that's what separates people.
It's terminology. Like in a distribution company, or even in, say, a streaming company, or a studio, the collection of movies that they have, do you know what term they use for that?
No.
Inventory.
Okay.
Now, inventory is a product term.
Got it.
That's how much stuff we have in our warehouse, how many widgets we have in our warehouse on our shelves.
Sure.
That's inventory. So having film rights, that's your inventory or your catalog. That would be your catalog. But that's inventory, basically.
Okay, that makes sense. So the Amazon warehouse is going to have X number of boxes of oatmeal, and I'm going to place an order for one.
Well, okay, let me rephrase that.
Okay.
DVDs sitting on a shelf would be inventory because those are physical, tactile objects, right? The rights to the films would be a catalog or a library. So it's not necessarily inventory. It's a catalog or library because it's rights. But now when you're delivering those rights, it's interesting, maybe there should be new terminology because when you're delivering them not like digitally, where there is no physical tactile medium that you're actually touching, maybe there should be another word. Maybe it's not product. But I don't know the other words, so probably maybe one of your viewers will phone in and say, hey, you should use that word. And let me know, please.
Okay.